Chosen one, stop what you're doing. This moment is not ordinary, it's divine. Right now, heaven has paused everything around you to deliver this urgent message. This is not your algorithm working. This is not coincidence. This is divine interruption. You are in danger, and the plan of God is stepping in before it's too late. There are things moving in the unseen realm that have been assigned to destroy you, not just physically, but spiritually. And that's why heaven is stepping forward to say, listen. Now, you are not like the rest. You've always known it. Even if you've never said it out loud, there's always been something different about you. Something set apart. You've walked through fires that should have burned you alive. You've faced rejection that should have crushed your spirit. But the reason you're still standing is because you were never meant to blend in. You are chosen. You are marked. You are the one God has preserved for such a time as this. This message is not for entertainment. It's a rescue. You may not feel like you're in danger, but that's how spiritual attacks work. They move quietly, silently, undetected, until it's too late. But God, in His mercy, is interrupting your flow today. Something tried to stop you from seeing this. Someone tried to silence your hunger for truth, but you pressed through. And now God is speaking directly to you. Wake up, chosen one. The time is now. The Spirit gave wisdom through the writings in Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 12. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. That heaviness, that loss of focus, that quiet despair you can't explain, these are not random emotions. They are alarms from your spirit. Something has been after your light. Something has been sent to keep you stuck. And the most dangerous thing you can do right now is nothing. God is speaking to you before the impact hits. He is trying to shield you before the storm gets closer. This is your window, and it's closing. Quickly. What you're hearing right now is not a feel-good message. It's a prophetic intervention. The kind of word that either activates your survival or confirms your downfall. You've noticed it, haven't you? The strange pressure in your atmosphere. The attacks that don't come from people but from patterns. The way your peace gets drained by things that used to feel normal. That's because the darkness around you has noticed the glow you carry. Your spirit is dangerous to the enemy's plans. You expose what others protect. You carry a clarity that disrupts demonic confusion. But the plan of God is moving now. It's not going to wait until you're ready. It's not waiting for your feelings to catch up. This is your divine moment of decision. Heaven has seen what's surrounding you and is calling you into the shelter of obedience before it's too late. The danger is real, but so is your purpose. God didn't choose you to be overtaken. He chose you to overcome, not just for yourself, but for everyone connected to your calling. You have no idea how many lives are tied to your yes. No idea how many chains will break when you finally obey. But delay is disobedience, and disobedience opens the door to danger. There are demonic patterns trying to repeat in your life, cycles trying to pull you back into versions of yourself God already freed you from. Don't go back. Don't settle. Don't explain away the promptings in your soul. Your spirit is not crazy, it's correct. This isn't fear talking. This is wisdom. This is warning. This is God's voice, making one last appeal. Come out now. And if this message is confirming what you already sensed, don't brush it off. If your heart is racing or your atmosphere shifting, it's because your spirit recognizes the urgency. Let this word be the line in the sand, the moment your future turns. And if this word is resonating, don't keep it to yourself. If this feels like it was written just for you, it's because heaven wrote it for you. Share this with someone else in the valley. Let the echo of this truth reach who it must reach. Click like, hit share, and comment below if your spirit knows this was for you. Comment 777 if you know this message was heaven sent. This is your number of divine alignment and spiritual completion. You are not too late, but you are out of time to wait. Something is after you. Chosen one, not in the natural but in the realm you cannot see with your eyes. There is a reason your sleep has been restless. The weight in your atmosphere has been increasing. You are under spiritual surveillance. Darkness has taken notice of you, not because you are weak, but because you are dangerous to everything that hides in shadow. You've been feeling the tension, haven't you? The invisible resistance, the wave of heaviness that comes right when you're about to do something important, the mental fog that settles in when clarity is needed. This is not random. You are being tracked not for your destruction, but for your potential. The enemy does not strike empty vessels. You carry something powerful, and what you carry terrifies the enemy. You are not being fought because of your mistakes. You are being fought because of your mantle. You may feel unworthy, but what's written over your name in the spiritual realm has drawn the attention of forces you can't imagine. And those forces are moving, whispering, manipulating the people around you, altering environments, all to stop one thing: your awakening. You've probably wondered why life hasn't felt normal, why your old ways of escaping don't work anymore, why the places you once felt comfortable in now feel suffocating. That's not coincidence, it's divine protection. God is allowing pressure to reveal what's pursuing you, because if you don't recognize the spiritual attack, you'll blame yourself for the weight. That's what the enemy wants for you, to ignore the signs until it's too late. As spoken through the ancient words in the letter to Peter, chapter 5, verse 8, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. The enemy doesn't just fear your future, he fears your decision. He knows that once you truly decide to follow the plan of God, something will shift. Strongholds will break, patterns will end, generational curses will be overturned. You will become a threat that cannot be silenced. That's why the warfare has increased. That's why the enemy is launching every distraction, delay, and attack. Because he senses what you haven't fully seen, yet your destiny is closer than ever. But this isn't just about you. The resistance you're facing is not personal, it's prophetic. You are the first in your bloodline to carry what you carry. You are breaking through barriers others surrendered to. Your obedience is about more than survival. It's about legacy. If you don't rise, the cycle continues. But if you do, the cycle ends with you. Have you wondered why certain people walked away without explanation? Why certain doors shut? It's not always failure, it's protection. God has been cleaning your environment. There are people who cannot go where you're going, spirits attached to them that cannot follow your call. Don't mourn what left. Don't chase what fell away. Something greater is at stake. The enemy would rather distract you with drama than confront you in the spirit. He wants you caught up in offense, rejection, or nostalgia, so you forget who you are and what you carry. But you're waking up now. and that awakening is dangerous. That's why the enemy has amplified old temptations. That's why your mind has been under attack. The closer you get to clarity, the louder the confusion. Not because you're weak, but because you're rising. There is nothing random about this moment. This pain, this warfare, everything you're feeling has purpose. Something is after you, but more importantly, something in you is beginning to fight back. That flicker you feel, that push in your spirit, that's not adrenaline. That's your anointing stirring. That's the warrior in you remembering who you are. You've made it through too much to be afraid now. You've seen too much to be naive about spiritual warfare. Now is the time to sharpen your discernment. Stay alert. You are not being randomly attacked. You are being specifically targeted. And the attack reveals the assignment. The greater the pressure, the greater the purpose. This is your reality. The enemy knows your name, but heaven knows your authority. As long as you remain connected to God's voice, no demonic scheme can prosper. But to walk in that covering, you must not sleep on what's happening. Wake up, watch, pray. What's coming after? You can't win unless you surrender your awareness. There's more happening around you than meets the eye. The shift you feel isn't confusion, it's transition. You're not falling apart, you're being rebuilt. And though it feels like you're under attack, the truth is, you're under construction. The danger is real, but so is the God who covers you. You've been under attack, and yet no one sees it. No wounds on your skin, no blood in your hands, but deep in your soul, something has been bleeding, something sacred, silent battles that no one claps for, spiritual pressure no one acknowledges, because not all warfare shouts. Some of it whispers. Some of the most dangerous attacks are the ones dressed like normal life. The days you feel numb for no reason, the heavy mornings that come out of nowhere, the thoughts that enter your mind uninvited, persistent, cruel, the distractions that feel harmless until you realize they've stolen your peace. That's how spiritual warfare works. When it gets close, it doesn't knock. It creeps. You've been brushing it off, trying to be strong, but strength without awareness is not power, it's exposure. God is showing you now, this has never just been about emotion. This has never been just anxiety. This is about your spirit being stalked by darkness that cannot touch your body. So it targets your atmosphere instead. The enemy cannot curse what God has blessed, but he can convince the blessed to forfeit their blessing. You've felt it in the quiet hours, that still pull to quit, that whisper that says, "You're not enough. You've missed your moment. Why keep fighting?" But those whispers are not yours. They are lies sent to shape your reality, sent to separate you from your assignment. Because the enemy knows, if he can't stop you, he'll try to wear you down, little by little, voice by voice, delay by delay, until you surrender your crown in exhaustion. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing, still listening to the voice of truth, even when everything around you feels like confusion. That alone is proof you are stronger than what tried to break you. You are still marked. You are still chosen. And the danger around you is not proof of failure, it's proof of spiritual value. No one counterfeits what's worthless. No one fights what's empty. You are being fought because you're carrying something eternal. As written in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Do you realize the enemy has studied you? He knows your patterns. He knows the moments you're weakest. He's mapped the terrain of your emotions. And he has waited for a moment just like this, where you feel tired, unrecognized, and unseen, to plant seeds of spiritual doubt. Not to kill you, but to mute you. Because a muted chosen one is easier to manage than an awakened one. But God is speaking now, louder than the silence. He is calling you out of agreement with these silent assassins. He is reminding you that your pain is not proof of absence, it's proof of warfare. You are not going crazy. You are not broken. You are under siege. Because you are nearing a shift. The greatest attacks often come before the greatest assignments. And what you're sensing right now isn't the end, it's the threshold. You are right at the edge of something holy, something new. But thresholds always attract resistance. Demons don't show up to threaten the lost. They rise to block the obedient. So you must decide. Will you retreat? Or will you rise? You may not feel strong, but your feelings are not the measure of your calling. Your faith is. And faith sometimes means standing in the middle of a storm with no visible proof of rescue, only the word of God and the whisper of the Spirit telling you, do not quit. Not now. End. Because right when the pressure peaks is when many walk away. And that's why I'm telling you this. Don't misdiagnose this moment. You are not being abandoned. You are being armed. You are not losing. It only looks that way from the outside. In the spirit. This storm is making room for glory. Now, pause. Take a breath. And understand what's really happening. This isn't weakness. This isn't failure. This is your oil being pressed. This is your roots being stretched. This is your mantle being secured. You are being refined in secret, so you can walk in authority in public. Every sleepless night, every hidden tear, every battle no one sees, heaven sees it all. And heaven is keeping score. Command, I won't quit. Don't just think it, type it. These 3 words are more than a statement. They are a resistance, a sword, a declaration in the spirit. Let the powers of darkness hear what your soul already knows. You've come too far to give up now. Write it boldly. Let it echo through heaven. You still believe. You are not cursed. You are called. What feels like a burden is actually evidence that you've been chosen. The warfare, the rejection, they don't prove your failure. They prove your identity. The enemy isn't attacking you because of where you've been. He's attacking you because of where you're going. But somewhere along the way, you started to believe the lies. You started to wonder, maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I missed it. The weight made you question your worth. The delays made you doubt your destiny. But here's the truth. Darkness never wanted you to realize. Everything you've survived proves God has not let go of you. There are those who went through half of what you did and never recovered. People who had the same betrayal, the same attack. But they broke. You didn't. You bent. But you didn't break. That's because something inside you won't die. That something is your calling. The enemy didn't try to destroy you just because you made mistakes. He tried to destroy you because he saw what would happen if you ever realized your authority. He saw the ripple effect of your surrender, so he moved early. He planted shame. He whispered condemnation. He disguised purpose as punishment. and he hoped you'd quit before you uncovered the truth. But not all pain is punishment, and not all waiting is wasting. God has been forging you in the fire, not to burn you, but to shape you. The furnace wasn't a curse, it was preparation. You weren't being abandoned. You were being refined. There's a weight you carry, and you've probably never had language for it. You've always felt out of place. You love deeply. You sense things others ignore. You wrestle with heaviness others laugh through. It's not because you're fragile, it's because you're spiritually sensitive. Your spirit picks up what others can't perceive. That sensitivity isn't weakness. It's your gift. It's part of your calling. You were marked to feel more, to discern more. While others move through life on autopilot, you can't. When you try to ignore it, you break. When you try to conform, you collapse. You weren't built to blend in. You weren't meant to be silent. You are set apart for a reason far greater than comfort. The battles you faced weren't just personal, they were generational. You've been fighting patterns your bloodline never confronted. Cycles of fear, addiction, shame. And while others bowed to them, you've been chosen to break them. You didn't ask for this war, but it found you. Not because you were weak, but because you were born to end it. You've been told you're too emotional, too intense, too sensitive. But those too much qualities are the very things God is using. You don't need to tone it down. You need to understand it. The fire in you is not random. The ache in you is not weakness. The restlessness in your soul is not rebellion. It's your spirit, recognizing there is more. As declared by the prophet Isaiah in the 61st chapter, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. And yes, you've fallen, you've run, but that doesn't disqualify you, it positions you. What God uses most often are not the perfect, but the willing, the surrendered, the broken vessels He turns into holy altars. That's what your life is becoming. You are not too far gone. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are still in the story. In fact, this moment is the plot twist, the chapter where heaven whispers, "Watch what I do with the one they thought was finished." The calling doesn't lift when you get tired. The anointing doesn't disappear when you fail. The hand of God doesn't pull away because of a bad chapter. His grace shows up strongest in the places you thought were too far gone. And the fact you're hearing this right now proves God is still writing, still calling you. So no, you're not cursed. You're carrying something sacred, something misunderstood, mishandled, even mocked. But God never lost sight of it. And now, He's uncovering what shame tried to bury. He's waking what silence tried to kill. And when the restoration begins, not everyone will celebrate. Some will still see your past. But God isn't asking for their permission. He's already chosen you. And what He appoints, no voice can annul. Walk forward, not in arrogance, but in surrender. You are not cursed. You are called, chosen one. Do you really think hell would let you walk into your destiny without a fight? There's a reason your life has felt like a battlefield. There's a reason you've faced storms before you ever stood on any stage. There's a reason you've been targeted since birth. Because who you are becoming poses a threat to everything hell has built in silence. The enemy saw it early. Before you knew how to pray, Before you knew the name of Jesus, there was a light on your life, a weight to your soul, a spiritual code written into your DNA, and the darkness marked you, not for destruction, but for disruption. He knew that if you ever rose into your true identity, you'd destroy altars he built in your bloodline. This is why the battles were so fierce, not because you were cursed, but because you were called to dismantle what others tolerated. You were born with a breaker's anointing. You are not here to play it safe. You are not here to go unnoticed. You were chosen to wage war in the spirit, to walk into places where fear has ruled for generations and speak light, to step into atmospheres polluted by compromise and release truth. And so, hell moved early. Your childhood, attacked. Your relationships, attacked. Your mental health, attacked. All to stop you from realizing what God placed inside you. But the enemy's greatest mistake was leaving you alive. Because now you've seen too much to go back. You've tasted enough of God's mercy to not walk away. You've been through too much to be silenced. What they didn't know is that every time they tried to break you, they were only sharpening your sword. Every loss refined your discernment. Every betrayal taught you to depend on heaven. Every delay was heaven's appointment to slow you down, so you wouldn't step into your destiny unprepared. The war against you has become the weapon within you. Now your presence alone disrupts the atmosphere. You walk in and darkness gets nervous. You speak, and hidden things get exposed. Not because you're loud, not because you're proud, but because you are carrying the presence of the one who called you. And that's why hell is afraid. Because you are waking up, and a chosen one who wakes up becomes a chosen one who cannot be stopped. You don't need to wait to feel qualified. You don't need applause to be anointed. You don't need a platform to carry power. God anointed David in private long before he sat on a throne, and he's doing the same with you. Right now, in the secret place. He's refining your oil, strengthening your spine, teaching your hands to war. Because what's ahead requires more than a title, it requires authority. And authority comes through fire, real fire. Not the kind you post about, but the kind that nearly breaks you, the kind that burns off the fear, that purifies your motives, that strips away every crutch you've used to feel valid. That's what you've been walking through. And if you're still standing, it means it didn't consume you. It commissioned you, as revealed in the second letter to the Corinthians. Chapter 4, verse 8. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair. And so if this message resonates, if you feel your spirit confirming this truth, then don't just keep it to yourself. Let it echo. There are others like you, warriors hidden in plain sight, chosen ones who have almost given up, voices that just need one breath of truth to rise again. When you like this message, you push it further. When you share it, you give someone else a chance to hear what darkness tried to bury. When you subscribe, you stay connected to the stream of word that heaven is using to wake up the remnant. And yes, when you sow into this assignment, you become part of the mission to take prophetic truth into more lives. Not because God needs your money, but because movements require means. Revelation travels faster when the remnant stands together. If this word lit something in you, consider helping it reach someone else. But even if you never sow, you are still seen. Even if you never say a word, you are still marked. Just don't stay silent. Don't stay asleep. Don't shrink down now. Not after everything you've survived. You are on the edge of a spiritual explosion. And the enemy knows it. The fear you're feeling, it's not yours. It's the enemy's. He's afraid you'll finally believe it, that you'll finally obey, that you'll finally rise. And when you do, hell will lose territory. So remember, the attacks weren't just about you. They were about your assignment, about the chains you were born to break, about the freedom you'll bring others. You're not just a survivor, you're a deliverer, a chosen voice, a walking weapon of light. Don't ever forget who you are becoming. Chosen one. Listen closely. This is not just another message. This is a lifeline. Right now, something holy is reaching for you through the noise. Something divine is pressing into your heart with urgency. Because time is thinning, and heaven does not repeat itself without reason. God is trying to save you from something that's been cycling in silence. You felt it, that invisible tug backward. Just when you start making progress, something reaches from behind and drags you into old patterns, old thoughts, old habits. It doesn't always come with a loud crash. Sometimes it comes with a subtle invitation. Just one more time. It's not that serious. You can fix it later. That voice that whisper, it's not from God. It's a trap dressed as tolerance. This is a final attempt to reclaim your soul, not just from sin, but from surrendering your edge. You were never meant to live numb. But the more you tolerate what God told you to walk away from, the duller your discernment becomes. That's how the enemy works. He doesn't need to destroy you instantly. He just wants to weaken your sensitivity, to make you call what's unclean harmless, to make you trade your throne for comfort. The tragedy? It often works. Not because you're evil, but because you're exhausted. Exhausted from fighting unseen battles. Exhausted from holding yourself together. And in that fatigue, compromise becomes easier to justify. Surrender becomes something you negotiate. And spiritual drift becomes your new normal. But that drift is costing you more than you realize. It's not just about what you're doing, it's about what you're delaying. The more you feed what should have been starved, the more you postpone what should have been birthed. Each time you go back to what God freed you from, you're not revisiting peace, you're reinforcing bondage. As spoken through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it. And you will find rest for your souls. You are at that crossroads now. The Holy Spirit has been nudging you, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Conviction isn't control, it's mercy. It's heaven warning you before your delay becomes disobedience. And your disobedience becomes distance. Because distance from God rarely feels sudden. It creeps in, slowly, silently, until one day, you're numb, you're confused, and you can't hear his voice the way you used to. Not because he stopped speaking, but because your compromise has dulled your spirit. The enemy can't steal your destiny. So he tries to erode your awareness. He'll distract you with blessings that weren't assigned to you. He'll flood you with options that feel good, but lead nowhere. And before you know it, years pass. Potential dies. And the fire you once carried fades into survival. But not this time. God is calling you back, not to the past, but to purity. Not to rules, but to realignment. This is not about perfection. This is about direction. This is about coming back to the path your spirit has always known, but your flesh kept avoiding. And when you return, don't expect it to feel easy. Growth rarely does. But what's waiting for you on the other side is not shame, it's strategy. God is not calling you out just to expose your weakness. He's calling you in to activate your purpose. If your spirit knows this word is for you, respond now. Don't just feel it. Mark it. Let the enemy know you're not going back. Let God know you're choosing the path of life. Comment 818. This number represents divine transition with clarity. It means you're not just moving, you're moving with God. You're not just changing, you're aligning. You're not just shifting, you're stepping into appointed destiny. Mark this moment. Let heaven and hell both know your cycle ends here, and your covenant begins now. You've cried too many tears. You've repeated this pattern too many times, and heaven is saying, this is your moment to sever the tie, to break the agreement, to rise into full surrender. Not partial, not emotional, not temporary, but permanent. Spiritual alignment. A turning point that future generations will thank you for. Because when you move now, everything changes. Because when you move now, everything changes. And when everything changes, the atmosphere shifts. What once ruled you will fear you. What once chained you will release you. What once delayed you will watch you rise. This is the moment hell hoped you'd miss. There is something trying to pull you back in, not just physically, but spiritually. A pattern, a temptation, a familiar comfort disguised as peace, and you felt it tugging on the edge of your awareness, calling you to return to what nearly destroyed you the last time. You've made progress, but progress doesn't stop the pressure. In fact, sometimes it increases it, because every time you take a step forward in the spirit, everything that used to control you rises up to negotiate. Old habits, old relationships, old mindsets. They whisper to your soul, you're not really different. You've done this before. You'll be back. But the truth is, you're not the same. You've been marked by something holy. You've seen what disobedience costs. You've walked through the consequences of compromise. And now, you can't unknow what you know. The veil has been lifted. Your eyes have been opened. But that doesn't mean the pull isn't real. It just means you can no longer return without cost. The enemy doesn't always come to knock you over. Sometimes, he just sends a gentle tug, just a text, a memory, a thought, a moment of weakness dressed as nostalgia. And before you know it, your heart is drifting into the arms of what God told you to leave. It's not about how strong you are, it's about how alert you're willing to stay. Because the danger of being delivered is that you can grow comfortable in your freedom, and when you become comfortable, you let your guard down. You stop praying as deeply, you stop discerning as sharply, and that's exactly when the enemy returns quiet, casual, subtle, but always strategic. This is why Jesus warned, when the unclean spirit leaves a person, it takes rest, and when it finds none, it returns. And if the door is open, it doesn't return alone, it brings more with it. Because darkness always aims to come back stronger, not just to possess you, but to own you fully. You must understand. Cycles don't just break because of intention. They break through vigilance, through surrender, through obedience. The enemy doesn't flee because you had a powerful moment. He flees when you walk in consistent truth. When your daily decisions match your divine identity, you can't afford to romanticize what God rescued you from. You can't afford to fantasize about things that nearly fractured your soul. You can't look back and remember only the feelings, because feelings lie. What felt good didn't serve you. What looked safe nearly killed you. What seemed harmless was a trap. You're not forgetting, you're being tested. We hear a sharp warning in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 26. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. End of quote. God is not just calling you forward. He's calling you to shut the door behind you. Because what you do in this moment will determine what follows you into the next. If you leave the door cracked, even slightly, the past will crawl back in. But if you seal it, if you truly cut the cord, if you fully surrender, then what haunted you will lose access. You have to make up your mind. This isn't just a battle of behavior, it's a war of identity. Who are you really? Are you who God called, or who your trauma shaped? Are you the version heaven anointed, or the version fear trained? Because you can't be both. One must be. Every act of compromise strengthens the wrong version. Every act of obedience resurrects the right one. That's the tug of war in your spirit right now. It's not random. It's not emotional. It's spiritual. The flesh wants control. The spirit wants surrender. And your choice today determines which side gains ground. You've already seen what almost obedience brings: delays, confusion, false peace. Don't go through it again. God didn't bring you this far to flirt with the past. He didn't heal you just to watch you reopen the wound. He didn't call you to leave you at the edge. He's waiting for you to cross over completely. There's more on the other side. Not just blessings, not just rest, but clarity, authority, power, freedom. But you can't walk in it while entertaining what He called you out of. You can't soar while clinging to chains. This moment matters, because you've come too far to turn back and you're too close to stop short. The temptation you feel isn't a sign of failure. It's proof that the old system is losing its grip. That means it's fighting harder than before. But don't listen to its voice. Don't follow its pull. You've outgrown it. You've broken free. Don't go back now. You've been stuck in a place called delay. Not denial, not destruction, but delay. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because delay doesn't feel like death. It feels like waiting. It feels like hoping without movement, believing without breakthrough, obeying without reward. And over time, if you're not careful, delay begins to sound like God's silence, when really it's a test of your endurance. Delay is deceptive. It makes you question whether the promise was real. It makes you wonder if maybe you missed it, misheard it, misunderstood it. It turns assurance into hesitation, conviction into confusion. Delay doesn't kill you all at once. It wears down your urgency. And when your urgency fades, your focus fades with it. The enemy loves delay because he knows most people won't quit at the beginning. They quit in the middle. He doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you long enough for you to give up on your own. Long enough for your fire to go out. Long enough for you to stop moving forward. Not because something stopped you, but because the weight wore you out. You thought delay meant God wasn't moving. But often, delay means God is protecting. Some doors didn't open when you knocked because what was behind them wasn't ready, or you weren't ready for what was behind them. Delay doesn't always mean punishment. Sometimes it means alignment. Because what's the use of stepping into a promise prematurely if it crushes you? God's timing is not denial, but it is discipline. And discipline is hard for a generation raised on immediacy. We've been taught that anything not instant is unfair. But God doesn't rush his process. He's not interested in convenience. He's preparing your character. In the writings of the prophet Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, a truth is revealed for seasons just like this. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Delay reveals things that success would have concealed. Delay exposes motives, tests loyalty, stretch patience. In the silence, you find out whether you really trust God or just trust results. In the waiting room of heaven, pride is stripped away, and titulamentís, real faith is born. Here's what you need to know. Chosen one, this delay has an expiration date. It may have lingered longer than expected, but it is not forever. God has not forgotten you. Heaven has not cancelled your assignment. You are not disqualified. What looks like stillness is strategic. What feels like pause is preparation. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean God isn't working. Think about it. Some of the most critical stages of growth happen underground. Roots spread long before fruit appears. But when the roots are deep, the harvest won't collapse. That's what God has been doing with you. Building depth. Not for applause, but for longevity. You thought nothing was happening. But while you've been waiting, God's been working. He's been removing the wrong people, aligning the right ones, reshaping your thinking, maturing your voice, rewiring your mind to carry the weight of where you're going. Because destiny without depth destroys. But depth, sustain. Still, you've been tempted to quit. Maybe you misunderstood the call. Maybe the vision was too big. That's how delay speaks. But clarity doesn't come from quitting. It comes from obedience. You get answers by staying faithful through the silence. Don't let delay distort what God confirmed. Don't let tiredness make you forfeit a future written with your name on it. You're not behind. You're being built. You're not stuck. You're being strengthened. Just because the door didn't open yet doesn't mean you stop knocking. Knock until the walls shake. Pray until the doubt leaves. Worship until the weight lifts. Keep moving forward. Not because it's easy, but because God is still worth following in the dark. This is not the end. This is not failure. This is preparation. And it's almost over. You are closer than you feel. The pressure is proof that the threshold is near. Labor intensifies before delivery. You're not breaking down. You're about to break through. So don't resent the delay. Let it stretch you. Let it train you. Let it make you sharp. When the time comes, and it will, you won't scramble to get ready. You'll be ready because you stayed faithful. And when you step into it, you'll realize nothing was wasted. Every tear had purpose. Every silent night held strategy. Every hidden season carried weight. The delay didn't disqualify you, it refined you. You weren't buried. You were planted. And now, it's time to rise. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where the pressure no longer feels external but internal. Not just from what's coming against you, but from what's growing within you. It's a holy tension, the kind that doesn't crush you, but breaks you open. And make no mistake, breaking open is not the same as breaking down. You're not being destroyed, you're being poured out. You've prayed for God to use you. And now He's answering, but not in the way you expected. He's not using your comfort. He's using your capacity. He's stretching your faith. He's testing your surrender. Not because He's cruel, but because He's preparing to pour something through you that can't come from surface-level obedience. This kind of weight only rests on those who can carry it. And that's what you're feeling now, not punishment, but preparation, not rejection. But, refinement. The weight isn't a sign of abandonment, it's a mark of trust. God does not press down on the empty. He presses on the filled. And when the pressing increases, the oil begins to flow. Chosen one. Heaven is trying to extract something from you, not because you're not enough, but because what's inside you is too much to stay buried. You are a vessel of breakthrough. You've been called to carry answers into places of confusion, to walk with light into atmospheres of despair. And in order to walk with that kind of authority, you have to first walk through fire. This is not just spiritual warfare, it's spiritual weight training. And weight training doesn't feel holy. It feels hard. It feels like being misunderstood. It feels like walking into rooms where your presence provokes. Not because of pride, but because of power. It feels like being crushed between your calling and your current reality. But hear this, the pressure is not proof you're failing. It's proof you're chosen. This is the cost of glory. This is the price of weight. You can't carry revival and live casual. You can't walk in power and stay silent. You can't be entrusted with divine fire and keep pretending you're cold. When God chooses someone to carry weight, He doesn't ask for permission, He asks for surrender. And the deeper your surrender, the greater the oil. So don't despise the pressing. Don't curse the crushing. Heaven is making oil out of what once made you cry. The very place of your breakdown is becoming the birthplace of your anointing. The people who saw you suffer will have to watch you rise. As spoken through the words of Paul in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." This weight is working for you. It's not random. It's not wasted. It's heaven-forged pressure, building something eternal in you. So no, you're not broken. You're becoming. You're not crushed. You're being crafted. You're not forgotten. You're being filled. But you must decide, will you surrender to the shaping, or will you escape back into the familiar? Because many are called, but few are willing to be crushed. Few are willing to be stretched. Few are willing to carry weight when applause is absent and affirmation is silent. But you're not like the rest. You didn't come this far to collapse under calling. You've been marked for more. This is your confirmation. You're not losing your mind. You're not falling behind. You're being prepared. That internal pressure you can't shake, that discomfort you can't explain, that's not confusion, it's construction. God is building you, layer by layer, in the quiet, where no one is clapping, so that when He reveals you, no one can break you. So don't give up in the middle. Don't bow out under the weight. You were born for this, crafted for this, called for this. The oil being produced from your life will shake strongholds and open ancient gates, but it only comes through surrender. If this word confirms what your spirit has been whispering all along, then don't walk away in silence. Mark the moment. Declare your surrender. Comment, "Crush me." Lord, these 3 words are not weakness. They are worship. They are the language of those who understand that glory requires weight. That oil comes through obedience. That pressing is divine preparation. Say it out loud. Type it in faith. Let every power of darkness know. Your spirit is yielding, not breaking. The pressing is not punishment. It is the birthplace of power. You were never meant to blend in. You were never called to stay hidden. The weight you've carried, the fire you've walked through, the loneliness you've survived, it wasn't for nothing. God has been setting you apart, separating you, not to isolate you, but to identify you. You are a remnant. While others compromised, you stayed convicted. While others settled, you kept stretching. While some grew cold, you stayed lit. That wasn't your own doing. It was grace, unexplainable, divina grace. And now, that grace is shifting, no longer just to keep you alive, but to launch you into visibility, because what God placed inside you isn't just for you, it's for the world. He's called you to reach, and yes, there will be resistance. Visibility always invites attack. The enemy doesn't chase the quiet, the passive, or the neutral. He chases the marked ones, the carriers of light, the disruptors of darkness, the voices that don't echo culture but release truth. You, chosen one, are becoming one of those voices. That's why this season has been so strange. That's why things feel tight and unfamiliar. You've been shifting dimensions, not just environments. You're not just moving houses, you're crossing thresholds in the spirit. You've left old rooms, old mentalities, old levels of influence. And now you're in a hallway, a space in between glory and manifestation, a place where heaven is equipping you before it reveals you. But don't misinterpret this in between. It's not punishment. It's preparation. This is where mantles are sealed. This is where strength is built. This is where oil is increased. The crushing, the silence, the rejection, it's all been preparation for public release. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 19, declares a truth that burns in this very hour. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. That includes you. There is a generation waiting on your voice, a territory waiting for your authority, a bloodline waiting for your obedience. You're not just someone scrolling through life, you are part of a movement, a divine interruption to generational bondage. And the pain you felt? It's not proof of abandonment. It's the sound of your spirit expanding. You are stepping into alignment, and with alignment comes assignment. You will speak, and things will shift. You will walk into rooms and atmospheres will bend. You will open your mouth and chains will break, because your words won't just be yours. They will be laced with fire. But the fire costs, and it's paid for in private surrender. That's why this message found you. Heaven needed to remind you who you are, not who you pretend to be, not who others assume you are, but the one God chose, the one He called, the one He preserved for such a time as this. Don't bury this word in silence. Don't scroll past like this was just another video. When you like this message, you help send it to someone who's suffocating in silence. When you share it, you partner with heaven to unlock someone else's breakthrough. And when you subscribe, You stay connected to the frequency of prophetic truth, truth that's awakening the remnant worldwide. And yes, when you sow into this movement, whether once or continually, you aren't just giving to a platform. You are fueling a prophetic mission. You are helping take bold, spirit-led truth into the darkest corners of the digital world. You are saying with your seed, I believe this matters. I stand with what heaven is doing here, because the gospel is free. But pushing light into darkness takes resources, and your support turns momentum into movement. You didn't stumble here. This was divine targeting, not coincidence calling. So don't dim your light to fit in. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't quiet your fire to avoid friction. You weren't made to survive. You were born to ignite. You are heaven's response to the cries of a broken generation. The evidence that God still raises up voices in a world gone mute. Every scar you carry is now becoming a seal. Every loss you've endured is now becoming leverage. Every detour you survived is now becoming direction. And everything the enemy meant for evil is being flipped into a testimony drenched in glory. The light is rising in you, and it will not be hidden. Let this message be a marker, a stake in the ground, a prophetic announcement to hell. You are not the one who turned back. You are not the one who broke under pressure. You are the one who stood, who wept, who obeyed, who endured, and now you rise. And when you rise, others rise with you. This isn't just about you. This is generational, foundational, eternal. So move with purpose. Speak with authority. Live like someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to release. Because what's inside you isn't optional. It's anointed. And if you ever wonder again why it hurt so much, why it was so hard, why it took so long, remember this, because what you carry is that important. There is a shift happening beneath the surface. You can't fully explain it, but your spirit knows it. Things that once satisfied you don't anymore. Conversations that used to entertain now irritate your discernment. Environments that once felt familiar now feel foreign. You've outgrown the shallow. It's not pride. It's growth. And growth is uncomfortable, especially when no one else around you seems to be changing. You look at the people you love, and they're still circling the same deserts, clinging to the same excuses. You try to stay connected, but every time you step backward into old spaces, you feel something in your soul resisting. That's not judgment. That's the Holy Spirit pulling you forward. God has been severing ties not because you're better than them, but because your future can't afford their influence. Some relationships weren't evil, just expired. Some conversations weren't sinful, just distracting. And now you're realizing peace isn't always polite. Sometimes peace means walking away without needing to explain why. Sometimes obedience sounds like silence. You're in a pruning season. And pruning doesn't just cut what's dead, it cuts what's still living, but no longer aligned. That's why it stings. That's why it feels like loss. Even though it's gain, you're not being punished, you're being protected. Because what's coming next can't be carried by someone who's tangled up in yesterday. A clear instruction is given in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 2. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. And it hurts, doesn't it, when the people you'd bleed for can't even clap when you rise? when your boundaries are met with betrayal, when your silence is mistaken for weakness. But listen carefully. Rejection is not always demonic. Sometimes it's divine, because the God who called you is the same God who will isolate you when necessary to preserve the oil. And the oil matters more than your comfort. You're not called to blend in. You're called to break cycles. And cycle breakers always look strange when they start moving different. They look too deep, too intense, too spiritual. But the truth is, they're just too awake to keep playing dead. That's where you are now, awake. And awakening always leads to separation. You're not crazy. You're not cold. You're not antisocial. You're being transformed. God is stripping you of attachments you didn't know were holding you back. You thought it was love, but it was loyalty to a version of yourself. God is no longer honoring. You thought it was connection, but it was a soul tie that blurred your discernment. And now, as you rise, some things can't go with you. Not because they're bad, but because they're too small for where you're going. You've prayed for elevation. This is what it looks like. Not just climbing platforms, but shedding weight. Not just gaining influence, but gaining clarity. And clarity always costs you something. It costs you comfort. It costs you circles. It costs you the illusion of belonging. But what you gain in return is priceless peace that passes understanding, vision that pierces confusion, and alignment that unlocks destiny. This is why the warfare intensified. The closer you get to clarity, the more hell tries to whisper confusion. The more you shed, the more pressure you feel, because darkness always resists movement. But resistance is not a sign to stop, it's a sign to push harder. You are walking through the thinning, the place between exposure and encounter, between hidden and holy. And what you do in this space determines what heaven releases next. If you turn back now, you'll miss it. But if you keep walking, if you keep obeying, if you keep letting go, you'll step into what eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, and minds haven't imagined. God is not just testing your desire, He's testing your discipline. Because this level isn't sustained by excitement, it's sustained by consistency. The kind of consistency that says yes when no one's watching, that obeys without applause, that lets people leave and still keeps loving, that builds in silence and still believes. And no, you won't always feel strong, you won't always feel ready, but you don't need to feel it to obey. You just need to trust. Trust that what God removes, He replaces. Trust that what He withholds, He redeems. Trust that the pruning won't end in emptiness, it will end in fruit. The kind of fruit that outlives popularity, the kind of impact that outlasts platforms. You're not just being prepared to be seen, you're being prepared to sustain what's coming. Because this isn't just a moment, it's a mantle. You're not called to be liked. You're called to be set apart. And set apart doesn't always feel good. It feels lonely. It feels misunderstood. But it also feels like freedom, like clarity, like fire in your bones. That's what's rising in you now, not noise, not hype, but holy fire. Let the pruning finish its work. There's a moment in the life of every chosen one when the battle shifts. At first, it's about survival. Then, it becomes about surrender. But eventually, it turns into strategy. God doesn't just want you to survive. He wants you to build, to take territory, to disrupt patterns, to leave a mark that eternity recognizes. You're stepping into that phase now. The war on your life wasn't random. It was targeted. Every delay, every detour, every betrayal. It wasn't just to hurt you. It was designed to stop you from stepping into this moment. But it failed, because no matter how deep the fire burned, it didn't consume you. You're still here, still seeking, still believing, still moving. But now comes the shift. The call to move from wounded to warrior, from endurance to enforcement. Because the enemy is terrified, not just of your survival, but of your understanding. When you begin to understand who you are, why you're here, and what heaven has placed inside you, hell trembles. You are dangerous now, not because of what you've gained, but because of what you've lost. You've lost the need to fit in. You've lost the desire to be liked. You've lost the comfort of hiding. And what remains is clarity, conviction, fire, purpose. And once a chosen one becomes clear, the enemy loses ground. But clarity demands commitment. You can't claim authority and still walk like a victim. You can't declare destiny and still entertain destruction. There has to be a separation. And heaven is calling you to draw the line, once and for all. You've entertained cycles long enough. You've tolerated fear long enough. You've delayed obedience long enough. This is your moment to mark the shift. No more back and forth. No more half in, half out. No more spiritual sleepwalking. There is a war for souls happening in real time. And you are a part of heaven's response team. Not because of how perfect you are, but because of how surrendered you're willing to become. And yes, this shift will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you popularity. It will cost you opinions. But it will gain you something far greater: peace, power, and prophetic clarity. This isn't about hype. It's about holiness. Not outward religion, but inward revolution. The kind that flips tables in the spirit and silences the lies of compromise. This is where you draw the sword. No more soft agreements with darkness. No more pretending you don't hear God just because obedience is inconvenient. No more shrinking your calling to keep people comfortable. You've seen too much. You've been through too much. You've grown through too much to turn back now. In the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15, a line is drawn in the sand. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's the kind of clarity heaven is requiring of you now. Adhesive spirit, a militant surrendé, the type of posture that doesn't waver when tested. The kind of faith that doesn't need applause to stay loyal. That's what separates the remnant from the rest. Not perfection, posture. So don't downplay what you carry. You weren't built to blend. You were forged to fight. And now the fire that once tried to destroy you is becoming your weapon. What once made you weep will now make demons flee. What once confused you is now your discernment. You're not just walking out of a wilderness, you're walking into an assignment. Let today mark the shift. Let it be the moment you decided enough was enough. Let it be the hour you put hell on notice that your obedience will no longer be delayed, that your sword is drawn, that your surrender is complete. And if your spirit bears witness with this message, if something in your bones says, yes, this is for me, then mark it in the spirit right now. Comment the number 444. This isn't just a number. It's a declaration, a marking, a heavenly record of a spiritual decision. 444 means, I am aligned, I am awake, I am armed. You're not commenting to be seen. You're commenting to make it clear to every force of darkness, you've chosen your side. You've picked your posture, and you will not be shaken. You're not turning back. You're stepping in. You're crossing over, and heaven is about to confirm it. The angels have taken note. The battle line is drawn. The old season has collapsed. What's ahead of you isn't just breakthrough, it's dominion. Step boldly. God goes before you. There are seasons when the silence of God is not his absence, it is his strategy. You've felt it lately, haven't you? The quiet, the waiting, the stillness. Not because you've sinned, not because you've failed, but because heaven is holding its breath, watching to see what you'll do with what you already know. This is not a season of new instruction. It's a season of remembered obedience. God already spoke. The blueprint is already in your spirit. The confirmation already came. But your flesh wants another sign. Your fear wants another assurance. Yet faith doesn't function by repetition, it moves by revelation. And what was revealed in the fire is enough to carry you through the fog. This is where many chosen ones turn back, not in rebellion, but in reluctance, not because they hate the assignment, but because the silence makes them second-guess what they once knew clearly. But listen closely. The stillness is sacred. It's where real warriors are built not on stages, but in silence, not in applause, but in isolation. If God seems quiet right now, it's because he's watching how you steward what he last said. The silence is a test. Will you still obey when heaven goes quiet? Will you still move forward when the goosebumps are gone? Will you still honor the word when the emotions fade? God doesn't build generals in environments of constant confirmation. He builds them in deserts of delay. In places where your yes isn't fueled by feelings, but by fire. And fire is what's forming you right now. Not the destructive kind, but the refining kind. The type of fire that removes what's extra. The kind that burns away every voice that is not his. The kind that forces you to lean, not on clarity, but on covenant. That's the kind of faith you're being invited into now. Covenantal faith. The kind that doesn't break when the silence lingers. It's deeper than feelings, deeper than routine. This is where maturity begins. Because immature faith needs miracles to believe, but mature faith obeys without signs. That's what separates wanderers from warriors. Some chase affirmation, but warriors stand on instruction. Chosen one. This silence is not void, it is volume. It is the sound of roots growing deep, the sound of character being carved, the sound of faith being forced to rise above emotions. You don't feel God. Good. Now you'll learn to trust him. And when you trust without proof, you terrify hell. The devil expects you to break in the silence. He expects your worship to wither, your consistency to collapse, your obedience to fade. But you're about to shock the darkness, because even with no sign, no sensation, no prophetic word in this moment, you're going to keep building anyway. That's power. That's maturity. That's a chosen one. When God seems silent, revisit what he last said. Write it again. Read it aloud. Prophesy it over your dry places. Speak to your soul and command it to align. Because your feelings are not, Lord Jesus is. And he has not changed his mind about you. You are still anointed, still called, still marked, still chosen. The silence hasn't cancelled the word, it's confirming your endurance. The Book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 26, holds a quiet revelation. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. There is strength in staying still. There is power in persistent peace. You don't need to strive. You don't need to beg. You don't need to panic. Just stay planted. Because trees that grow in silence often outlast those that shoot up in noise. Your hidden season is holy. Your silence is sacred. What you're learning now will outlive this moment. You're learning how to be faithful without being seen, how to serve without being celebrated, how to burn with fire when no one is watching. That's what makes you unstoppable, not because you're loud, but because you're deeply rooted, and what's rooted cannot be shaken. So, if you're in a silent season, rejoice. If it feels like heaven is watching but not speaking, you're not abandoned, you're being trusted. God doesn't go quiet on the unimportant. He only tests what he intends to elevate. This silence is the sound of trust. Stay faithful. Stay present. Keep showing up. Keep praying. Not for a new word, but for renewed strength. Because your moment is coming not just of release, but of reward. He sees it all. Every tear sown in silence. Every act of obedience no one clapped for. Every time you said yes with trembling hands. It's all been recorded. And when the appointed time arrives, the silence will break. The fog will lift. And the promise will roar. Until then, walk like it's already done. Because heaven is not silent forever. It's just making sure you're ready for what it's about to release. There are realms of spiritual authority that can only be accessed through suffering, not because God delights in your pain, but because pain purifies your posture. It strips away entitlement. It severs shallow faith. It reveals who you are when everything you leaned on is shaken. And if you've been walking through suffering, God isn't punishing you. He's positioning you. He's using the pressure to forge something in you that ease never could. Because when comfort surrounds you, you can mistake gifting for anointing. But in the fire, all pretenses are burned away. You discover quickly what was hype and what was holy. And for a chosen one like you, God refuses to let you live off borrowed fire. You have to carry your own flame. That's why the battles have intensified, not because you're weak, but because you're being weaponized. Your scars are being turned into keys. Your history is becoming authority. You didn't survive the fire to come out empty. You're coming out with evidence. The kind that can't be manufactured, the kind that hell recognizes and backs down from. You're not a theory. You're a testimony. You see, there are people who know Scripture, and then there are people who've become Scripture. You're stepping into that second category, not just quoting verses, but living through them, bleeding through them, and that kind of life is costly, but it's also unmistakable. Because when you walk into a room, you don't bring religion, you bring reality, power, weight. You carry what you've been crushed for. There are dimensions of clarity you now walk in. Not because someone laid hands on you, but because life tried to break you and failed. You've stared at the edge of despair and still chosen to stand. You've heard the lies of the enemy in your own mind and silenced them with worship. That's not weakness. That's war. And you, chosen one, are a warrior forged in fire. You're learning that glory doesn't always feel glorious. Sometimes it feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like dying. like letting go of what you thought you needed, who you thought you were, how you thought it would turn out. But the death of what's false is the birth of what's eternal. You weren't called to be impressive. You were called to be impactful. And impact comes through surrender. So if the tears haven't stopped yet, don't curse them. If the night still feels long, don't lose heart. These are holy tears. These are sacred groanings. This is deep calling unto deep. The kind of groaning that births revival. The kind of pressing that produces oil. The world has no language for. God is not late. He is just precise. And sometimes, precision requires pain to align you, to humble you, to recalibrate your perspective, because you can't carry kingdom authority and walk in carnal assumptions. You can't be entrusted with glory while still clinging to self. There has to be a death, and from that death, resurrection rises. As it is written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 10, we always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. That's what's happening to you right now. The death of self is revealing the life of Christ. The weight you feel is not weakness, it's the glory settling on you. The ache you carry is not abandonment, it's alignment. And the silence? It's the sound of heaven carving your character to match your calling. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And planted things don't look powerful at first. They look hidden, forgotten, covered in dirt. But underneath, something unshakable is taking root. And when the time comes, you won't have to force your way forward. You'll rise, not with striving, but with substance, with fruit, with oil. So don't rush this season. Don't despise the pain. Don't run from the weight. God is stretching your spirit to make room for what's coming. And when it arrives, you'll recognize it not because of the spotlight, but because of the stillness. You'll know it's God, because it won't stir your ego, it will crush it. And what's left will be usable, holy, real, chosen one. God isn't just preparing something for you, He's preparing you for something. And the deeper the crushing, the purer the oil. And when the oil flows, it won't just touch your life, it will heal others. It will confront darkness. It will awaken dry bones. It will declare, this vessel was tested, trusted, and now released. Chosen one. This moment you're in is not just another day passing by. It is prophetic. It is pivotal. It is personal. Something in the atmosphere has shifted, so has something in you. You feel it, don't you? The way your spirit stirs differently now, the way the familiar no longer comforts you, that's not fatigue, it's divine agitation. A sign that heaven is positioning you for manifestation. You weren't created to live casual. You weren't formed in your mother's womb for mediocrity. You were designed for dominion, wired for war, built for breakthrough. And heaven didn't carry you through the fires of your past just to let you settle now. You were born for such a time as this. But purpose is expensive. It will cost you comfort and reward you with everything eternal. That's why the warfare has been relentless. The delays, the betrayals, the mind battles, the private breakdowns, none of it was accidental. The enemy wasn't just attacking your emotions. He was trying to abort your assignment. But here you are, breathing, standing, leaning in, and not just surviving awakening, You're not the same version of yourself that stepped into this season. And thank God for that. Because what's coming next requires a different version of you. Not louder, not flashier, but deeper, sharper, holier. The real you, the one God has been revealing through fire and process, is about to emerge. And when you rise, it won't be for applause. It'll be for purpose. You'll move differently, speak differently, see differently. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because obedience has made you unrecognizable to those still living in compromise. There's a glow that comes from being in the fire and not burning, a peace that confuses darkness, a presence that shifts rooms. That's the mantle falling on you now. So I need you to do something bold, not for me, but for those connected to your assignment, like this message, because someone else needs to hear it. Someone else needs to realize they're not crazy, not disqualified, not forgotten. Someone else needs to see light in their darkest hour, and you sharing this could be the spark. Subscribe to stay connected to this stream of anointed truth. You are not called to walk this journey alone. The remnant is rising, and you are part of it. One voice can be overlooked. 1,000 can be silenced. But when the chosen ones unite, hell trembles. And if this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, if you know this isn't just information but confirmation, consider sowing into this movement. Not out of obligation, but alignment. Because prophetic voices must be heard, and your generosity helps keep this light shining in places most fear to enter. You are not funding content. You are fueling a spiritual rescue mission. And if God is nudging your heart, don't ignore it. Even small obedience unlocks supernatural release. Now, back to your assignment. This is the hour where many will fall away, not because of rebellion, but because of apathy. But not you. You've already been through too much. You've seen too much deliverance. The call on your life won't let you quit. Let this message be your line in the sand. Let it be the moment where you decided enough was enough. No more delay. No more shrinking. No more tiptoeing around destiny. This is your hour to rise and run. To speak boldly. To walk in fire. To break the chains that generations before you couldn't. A fierce declaration is recorded in the book of Job, chapter 22, verse 28. You will decree a thing, and it will be established for you. Light will shine on your ways. That is not just a verse, it is a charge. You are not waiting for breakthrough to find you. You are decreeing it, and heaven will respond to what comes out of your mouth. Not because of your volume, but because of your alignment. So rise not when it's convenient, not when others approve, but now, while it still costs, while it still hurts, while it's still lonely, because the glory isn't coming after you move, it's going to fall as you move. And when it does, you'll understand why the enemy tried so hard to discourage you. Why the attacks were so personal. Why the delays were so strategic. Because the devil saw the light before you did. And he knew, if you ever truly awakened, you'd be unstoppable. Chosen one. You're not on the sidelines. You're on the front line. You are heaven's answer to hell's chaos. So stop waiting to be invited. You've already been called. Sorise. Roar. Burn. Release. The earth is groaning for the sons and daughters of God to manifest, and your time is now. Like, subscribe, share, and comment if this is your confirmation. You're not just part of the audience, you're part of the army. And your voice, Your obedience. Yes, it matters more than you know. There's a weight that rests on those chosen by God that no one else can understand. It's not the weight of performance, but the weight of responsibility. You carry something eternal. You hold within you a mantle that isn't loud or flashy, but heavy with purpose. And while others run from the pressure, you've been called to carry it. That's why your journey has looked different. While others coasted, you wrestled. While others compromised, you wept. While others chased platforms, you fought in silence. Because deep down, your spirit knew. You weren't made for comfort, you were made for covenant. And covenant always costs. There's a deep stripping that comes with the call. Not because God is cruel, but because He refuses to allow anything false to go with you into what's next. You've been asking God for elevation, but elevation always exposes. And before He lifts you, refines you, purifies your motives, examines your loyalty, and dismantles every idol that still competes with His voice. You thought He was delaying you. He was actually preserving you. He saw what was waiting at the next level. The warfare, the visibility, the pressure, and He loved you too much to let you rise too soon. That's why the pruning felt severe. That's why the isolation lasted longer than expected. He wasn't ignoring you, He was fortifying you. So when you step into the new, it won't shake you. You'll be rooted, not in applause, not in outcomes, but in Him. As recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 50, verse 7, because the sovereign Lord helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like flint, and I know I will not be put to shame. That's the posture you're stepping into now, flint-faced focus. No longer swayed by distractions, no longer living by emotion. You are moving by conviction. Because this next season is not about excitement, it's about execution. You've received enough revelation. You've heard enough confirmations. Now is the time to walk it out. Chosen one. Heaven is not waiting for you to feel ready. It's waiting for you to move. To act like you believe what you've been praying for. To speak like you carry what you've been anointed with. To show up with authority, not insecurity. Because what rests on you now isn't theory, it's tested oil. You didn't get here by accident. You got here by fire. The kind of fire that burns away pretense, that silences the crowd and isolates your identity. That reveals who you are when no one is clapping, when no one is cheering, when no one sees the warfare behind your obedience. And yet, you obeyed anyway. You showed up anyway. That's why you're dangerous. Because you didn't need proof to keep moving. You didn't need applause to stay faithful. You learned how to burn in private. And now the fire in you is too strong to be extinguished by anything external. And no, this next part won't be easier, but it will be clearer. You won't waste energy on the wrong doors. You won't be swayed by the wrong voices. You won't be entangled by the wrong battles. Because the refining has taught you how to recognize what's real, and real recognizes real. So when God brings you into alignment with others who carry the same weight, you'll move in unity, not comparison. This is why the breaking had to happen. You had to learn how to be whole without the things you thought you needed. How to be loyal to God when the fruit wasn't visible. How to stay pure when compromise seemed easier. That's not weakness, that's maturity. You are not just a survivor. You are a vessel. And vessels don't choose their assignments, they yield to them. You didn't choose this calling, it chose you. Before you were born, before the pain, before the tests. God wrote your name into a storyline that stretches beyond your lifetime, and you're about to walk into chapters that only obedience could unlock. So breathe deep. You don't need to force what God has already finished. You don't need to prove yourself to those who were never assigned to recognize you. You don't need to strive for favor, it's already following you. Your job now is to remain aligned. Stay in step. Walk slow if you must, but never stop. You're too close now. The glory is closer than it's ever been. The fruit is about to show. The people you're called to reach are waiting, not for a perfect version of you, but for a real one, a surrendered one who still trembles before the Lord, but doesn't shrink from the battle. That's who you are now, marked, set apart, battle-tested, and ready. There is a sacred shift that happens when you finally stop begging for rescue and start walking in responsibility. When you stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Send me." That's where you are now. Chosen one, standing on the edge of divine appointment. Not waiting for the world to affirm you, but standing in the authority that only fire can forge. You've walked through too much to question the weight you carry. You've been misunderstood, rejected, misread, and yet you remained. Not because you were perfect, but because you were anchored, not by applause, not by titles, not by outcomes, but by conviction. And conviction is what separates the marked from the mistaken. You are not mistaken. You are marked. Every season that tried to bury you only deepened your roots. Every voice that told you to quit only sharpened your focus. Every detour only trained your spirit to hear the whisper of God in the midst of chaos. And now, after all of it, you're still here. And not just barely breathing, you're burning. Burning with holy resolve. Burning with the kind of clarity that can't be taught, only birthed through pain. You're no longer asking for the storm to stop. You're learning how to walk on the waves. And when the wind howls now, you don't flinch, you discern. You listen for strategy. You look for the next move. Because warriors don't panic. They prepare. And that's what you've become. A prepared vessel. Not shaped by comfort, but by consecration. Not motivated by likes, but by legacy. Not carried by hype, but by holy endurance. You've been trained in hidden places, far from stages, far from eyes, far from applause. And that is exactly why you're ready. Because you didn't just learn how to fight, you learned how to stand. And when all else falls, those who know how to stand are the ones who will rebuild. You've been assigned not just to survive chaos, but to carry peace into it. You're not just a messenger, you're a movement. When you speak, atmospheres shift. When you pray, heaven listens. When you show up, darkness loses ground. Not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. This final stretch won't be easy. Final battles never are. But what's ahead isn't just survival, it's succession. God isn't just giving you recovery, He's giving you rule, authority, dominion, influence that lasts. Not because you chased it, but because you withstood everything sent to destroy you, as the word of the Lord comes through the prophet Daniel. Chapter 11, verse 32. The people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. You don't need more hype. You need depth. You don't need to be seen. You need to be sent. And heaven is sending you now. Not with noise, but with knowing. You know who you are. You know what you carry. You know what it cost. And that knowing is what makes you unstoppable. This is not the end of your story. It's the activation of your assignment. The warfare was never about your past. It was always about your future. The enemy saw your impact long before you did. That's why the battle was so intense. That's why the delays were so strategic. That's why the attacks came in waves, because hell knew that if you ever stood up in full surrender, nothing would be able to stop you. And now, you're standing, not bitter, not broken, but bold. So, carry it. Carry the oil. Carry the fire. Carry the word. Carry the assignment. You've been tested, tried, refined, and now released. No longer a prisoner of your past. No longer bound by fear. No longer paralyzed by insecurity. You've crossed over. The weight you once cried under is now the mantle you walk in. The darkness you once feared now fears the sound of your footsteps. You are not hidden anymore. You are heaven's strategy. What's ahead of you won't require you to be louder, just more aligned. It won't need you to prove yourself just to stay surrendered, because what's opening now has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with lineage. You are walking in the promises that were spoken over bloodlines long before you ever breathed your first breath. This is legacy. This is the moment hell hoped you would sleep through. But you didn't. You stayed awake. You stayed yielded. You stayed true. And now, everything is shifting. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. You are no longer waiting for revival. You are the revival. You are no longer praying for a move of God. You are the move of God. You are no longer seeking confirmation. You are the confirmation. Chosen one. Run your race. The time is now. The fire is here. The oil is flowing. The doors are open. And heaven has already gone before you. Chosen one. If this message has ignited something deep within your spirit, don't let it fade. Let this be more than words you heard. Let it be a moment you mark, a divine confirmation that you are not alone, not forgotten, and most of all, not ordinary. You've been set apart. You've been tried, proven, and now released. If you felt God speaking directly to you, then do something with it. Like this message, not for vanity, but for victory. Because every like tells the algorithm. Push this to someone else who's breaking right now. Someone is one scroll away from giving up. And your simple action might be the rope that pulls them back. And don't just keep this to yourself, share it. Freedom is contagious. And your act of obedience might be the answer to someone's silent cry. You never know what one click can rescue. Subscribe to stay aligned with what heaven is releasing here. This isn't just a channel, it's a lifeline, a space for the remnant. The called, the misfit warriors who refuse to bow to culture but burn for the kingdom. You belong here. Stay connected. And if this word met you in a season of fire or famine, consider sowing into this movement, not out of pressure, but prophetic alignment. Every gift, every offering, every seed keeps the message burning, reaching, and rescuing those who've been silenced too long. Comment below if this spoke to your spirit. Your comment is not just engagement, it's agreement. It tells the kingdom of darkness, I heard God, and I'm moving with him. Len, chosen one. Keep burning. Keep standing. Keep obeying. Heaven is counting on you.